Today's guest is the Great Palumbo. Based out of Nashville, the Great Palumbo is making their way into people's hearts and playlists with their honest songwriting. Welcome, the Great Palumbo.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Appreciate having you on. So
Yeah.
let's go back to the beginning of your story for you personally. Where were you first born and raised, and how did music come into your life?
I was born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. And music came into my life. I guess I started high school band, not high school band, like elementary school band was where I first started playing music. Um, Played the flute in that band.
Awesome.
But then a couple of years later, I picked up the guitar because I guess to be totally honest, I just wanted to be cool, and it worked. Not, but it was something that like a lot of people around me were doing. I was kind of in this weird like environment where like it was like cooler to play music than it was to do like other things. So I kind of got into it just kind of to be part of something, and like it really stuck with me. I mean, in the beginning, I was like playing guitar and bass in bands here and there, and what I really started to hone in on more so was just that like songwriting was the only thing I really cared about in this whole equation. I had gotten myself to be like a decently good guitar player. I mean, in the context of Nashville, like I don't even say that I'm a guitar player because people around here can just like, these are like guitar players. You know, I can hold my own, but like, I mean, I only really at this point aspire to be as good at the guitar as I need to be able to write a good song. So that's kind of where I've been focused ever since, because it just, I don't know, it just feels good to make something.
Yeah, that's awesome. What kind of music was in your life growing up? Like, what was around you? Was it family musical? And also, like, what artists influenced you as you played guitar?
Yeah, I guess my family is musical. I mean, like I didn't really have like a particularly like musical household that I grew up in, but like in a former life, my dad was a symphony musician, and he had like hung up that cape before I was born. So there was always this big bass in the corner collecting dust. My uncle still plays trumpet in the Milwaukee Symphony, so I guess that qualifies as musical. But yeah, in my house growing up, it was just kind of like there wasn't a ton of music going on. But Yeah, I mean, in terms of who influenced me though, and what I was listening to, I'm trying to think. My mom was a big James Taylor fan. I
Oh,
think as a
nice.
kid, I was like, kind of thought like, oh, this is not cool music. But now as an adult, I actually really like James Taylor. And I know my dad was pretty into like, he's kind of had a few different kicks of things in his life, but I think what I remember most clearly growing up was that he was really into like bluegrass, like Ricky Skaggs and the Leuven brothers and stuff like that. So that was always going on in the car rides and stuff. He also still listened to a lot of classical music, so there's that.
That's awesome.
Um,
Yeah, go ahead.
oh, sorry.
Yeah. So when you started writing songs, what were those songs first like, and like what were they about, and how did they sound?
Yeah, I started writing songs when I was like 13, 14, 13 to 14. And I'm trying to think. I know the first song I ever wrote, it was called Start Over, and it was just like about feeling like bad about something that had happened and wanted to just start with a clean slate. And I don't know. I mean, I think it was just I was a moody, like, like 13-year-old, 14-year-old. I think it was just like a good way to like kind of get my emotions out and process things. So they were mostly just like dramatic teenager bullshit. um, but they were, I mean, I guess they were like, just sort of like your standard fare alternative rock. Um, yeah, I wrote a lot during that time, and like, um, I mean, I'm talking like albums worth of material that it never even occurred to me that I would like ever release it. It was just like I just did it, and I like got it down on paper, and I like listened to it on my iTunes library over and over and over again, just like obsessively. And it wasn't until way later that I actually started like sharing things out. But
Wow. So were some of the songs you released later written that soon, like during your early writing years?
there are some that have like versions of them came Like I think the only song, like the oldest song that we put out as part of the Great Palumbo, as part of this project, I think I wrote it when I was like 19. Although like the chorus of it I had written when I was like in high school, but it had evolved and through time, and it was like probably that was like the oldest thing. Most of it is like current-ish. But there were some things that like I pulled, like I think the oldest song that I still is like in the running to potentially be released somewhere. I wrote it when I was like 15, but again, it's been rewritten since then, just because I know how to do things in a better way
Yeah,
now.
that's awesome though. It's like you never know. And those early songs are always so important to the development. I feel like, it's kind of easy to get embarrassed about them sometimes, but looking back, I'm sure sometimes
Yeah,
like, man, that really did something for me.
it would be
So
rough to put those out to share those now, but I mean, I guess like they were definitely like not good,
yeah,
but they weren't bad though. I mean, they're fine.
yeah. Well, that's awesome. When did you first start performing and like, getting these songs out to people?
When did I first start performing? Like ever, or
Yeah,
just
like
like
like ever. Like what was your performing
um?
experience in those early years with the guitar?
I think uh, I think I kind of really got my chops, like a lot of people, just playing in like church band. So I mean, that was there were a few dudes that I was sort of like in a like. I mean, I think that like at a lot of churches, it's common for like players to like move around and be in like different, like just random combinations of people. But for some reason, like we had kind of like a team going on of just like whenever we were all on the roster, it was all of us together. And so we kind of got to a place where it was cool. We'd be able to trade instruments during a set and just like try things out. And that was a lot of what sort of got me chops to be playing with a band, playing on stage. I think my parents like signed me up for it when I was young because they were like, we just want him to have an outlet. And so it wasn't until a little later that I started actually doing performances of my own songs. Those were like a lot scarier. I think that like the first time I did something that was just on my own and sort of like an unsanctioned environment, I played at like a school talent show. And like this would have been like I was like 15 maybe. And I remember my heart was beating fast before that one. But and yeah, but from there, just like there were just things that I had friends that would be playing music too. So when they were doing something, I might play the song or two with them, and it kind of just evolved over time until it became sort of more normal in my life for me to be playing a set at a venue somewhere. And then it wasn't until later that I was like, all right, I'm going to Nashville and I'm going to take a shot at this. So since then, it's been pretty normal.
Yeah, that's cool to hear, man. So eventually you said, let's go to Nashville and take a shot. Was that always your life plan, was to be a musician, or do you have another plan before that finally happened?
No, I mean, I wasn't really sure. I did have this vague inkling that I was going to like need to attempt this at some point. I was like, at some point I'll be old. Before I get there, I need to have done two things. I wanted to go travel, and I wanted to try my hand at music. So I started with the travel thing. So at the end of college, I've been playing shows here and there, like on a semi-regular basis around Boston when I was in college. And from there, I went abroad to teach English for a year. So I was living abroad for a while, and then like it was probably like a year and a half, like a year before I was like actually like back in the States. Just because I did a lot of backpacking and stuff at the end of it. But I at the time though, I I guess I was out there in the world, and I was with this girl who I'm still with. She's in the next room now. So spoiler alert, there's a happy ending to the story. But like she was American, and she like I didn't really want to go home. I was having a good time out there, and she wanted to go home. And so we were kind of like trying to reconcile, like, okay, what happens now? And I was like, okay, you know what? I will go home if we go to Nashville, because I like this is a thing that I want to do, and this will give me like a really good purpose and reason. And it's something like honestly, I should probably, if I'm going to do it, I should do it now anyway. So in a way, it's thanks to her that I'm doing this. Cause I mean, I don't know where I would be in life if I hadn't sort of had something sort of like divert my path a little bit. But, showed up to Nashville with that purpose. I forget the
Wow.
beginning of this question. I feel like I got lost in the story.
No, it's all good. That's awesome. So when you got to Nashville, what were your first steps you took to kind of ingrain yourself with the music community? Was it hard? Like, was it overwhelming at all, or was it really comfortable for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely. I mean, it wasn't easy, but it wasn't hard too. I mean, I think that it's just like Nashville's a place where it's like there's a lot happening here. Like this is like, I mean, this is Music City. I think that it's got that reputation, but I feel like people don't really understand like how true that is. I mean, it's like, yeah, country music's a thing here and it always has been, but there's just a scene that is just so much bigger than that exists. And it's like mostly like not accessible except through getting to know people and like, you know, learning what's happening around your town. And so, I mean, when I first showed up here, I was just like, I forget, like, I'm trying to think back to this time. Like, I think almost my entire Nashville life comes back to like one conversation that I had outside of a coffee shop. Not 100% of it, but like, yeah, no, I think I'm going to say that like 100% of it comes back. When I showed up, I did not have like any way of making money or anything like that. Like, so I was, you know, I had most of my belongings in my car. And, you know, I was getting a little bit of help from the parents through this time. And I was just like, I just need to find some way to like make money first. So I was spending a lot of time just sitting in the same coffee shop, like trying to figure out like a job situation to start with. And I like went outside one day and there was, oh, this is actually kind of funny. Like, so back in Columbus, there was this dude, shout out to Eric Tarr, miss you, dude. He was a guy that was sort of a mentor figure to me in the music world. He like recorded a lot of my early things. He was like a good bit older than me, but like we played together in church band, and we just sort of remained, you know, friends even after like that situation had ended, and like, you know, we were in different places in life. And he actually moved to Nashville a couple years before I did because he got a professor. He was a professor of audio engineering at Belmont, which is the big music school in Nashville. And so like his wife was like sitting around the corner and like saw me and was like, "Hey, Peter." So I was like, "What?" And I was like, "Oh, hey." And I went and talked to her, but then I came back and there was like this group of people that also had a person named Peter in it, and like they thought that that she was calling to them. So I like started talking to them about how we were both named Peter, and then they were like, they invited me to like a party or something after that, and like I went to the party, made some friends there, like, and sort of had like things that I got invited to after that. I just kind of like literally like if you just trace back the DNA of my social life, I think it all comes back to this one thing. So I guess that was easy, but it was also by pure happenstance. And you know, it was easy to meet people. Like it's a great vibe. Like everybody is like really welcoming, and but it also is like sometimes difficult to be doing this here because it's just like sometimes you go places and you're just like, wow, I suck. These people are so good.
Yeah,
So, you know, it's just kind of like it definitely challenges you to, you know, get better.
yeah, for sure. I mean, that's something I've heard a lot about is that there's just so much there, but instead of like being competition like it could be, it's a lot of honest support because a lot of people just like lift each other up. So that's a good thing. It's just there's just a lot of it over there. But yeah, what music things did you get into first? Did you start performing? Did you seek bandmates? Did you get any projects started? What happened with that?
Yeah. So I started, one thing that I think was important in the beginning of my being in Nashville was I was a part of this sort of like songwriter club. It was called the Yacht Club, which I think is now defunct. But at the time, though, it was just like every so often, I forget what the cadence was, but like we would just all get together, and it was just people that were like, songwriters for various things around town, and we would just like share songs and like get feedback together. And like that was how I kind of started to make friends in the music world, like for real. Um, and the Great Palumbo as a project, it started like almost a little earlier than I like wanted it to, because like, I mean, I knew I was going to do it. Like I knew like everything about it. I just sort of was like, I'm not really in a position to execute on this quite yet. But then I, made some friends that like had also arrived around the same time as me, that like, uh, a drummer, dude who played the guitar, like they were looking for a project to play, and then they were, let's just do it. And I was like, okay. Like, and we were we were like doing rehearsals for it like within a few months of me being here. And but I was like not really ready for it at that point. Like, I mean, it was like, I think we did our first ever rehearsal in like the living room of the front man of my drummer's other band. So I felt a little awkward about that. But yeah, over time though, it's evolved, and yeah, it's been a long road for sure. I mean, it's been this project has always been the aim, and has existed for like a good amount of time before it actually was like releasing music out into the world. So I mean, the dawn of time, as far as the rest of the world concerns, is like 2019, but like we were here like years before that, just playing shows, and with no link to give people to like, here's where you can go find our stuff.
Yeah, interesting. So you mentioned before it even started, you had kind of a vision for what it would be. What was that vision for the Great Palumbo?
Well, I mean, maybe a vision makes it sound too aspirational. I had a lot of songs that I had written that I wanted to use. I also went in with the intention of, writing a lot more songs once I got here. And, once we were actually in a position where I was like shopping around for like a producer to like work on our first batch of stuff, like at that point I had like, it was like hyper specific, because like, I mean, it's expensive to record this stuff, and I was doing it all out of my own pocket. So I was just like, I need to know every detail of this before we start moving on this. Like I had like a Word doc with like every song, like sort of like pre-production notes like written out for every song that was like pages long. And so it was I mean, that definitely cast a vision for what it was going to sound like sonically. And all I really cared, all I really like claimed to have much of a, to be an authority on is like, how this all sounds sonically. I mean, like how this transposed into, visual mediums and other things. Like this is not really like where my brain is. So, I mean, that was all stuff that I kind of had to figure out later. And over time, I have arrived at, these sorts of like ways to approach these things that I feel good about. But sonically though, that was all I really cared about. And yeah, I mean, I guess the vision was that it was going to be. I mean, I think it was definitely like going to be sort of like this, like grounded in sort of folk and rock music. But I had a lot of kind of weird ideas of how I wanted to like experiment with things. And I've never really been somebody that was like super married to something being like a particular genre. And I think that certainly holds true today. I mean, like, I think that, when you release a song, like once you release it, you got to like pitch it to a bunch of things to try and get some attention, and which is, mostly no's. And I think that I'm probably one of the people that can say that every single song I've ever released, people have said no to them, each of them individually, because it was too rock, too pop, and too country. Like every song has gotten those three pieces of feedback. And at this point, I'm like, I've accepted that, I guess.
Wow, that's awesome. It's almost an accomplishment itself being able to have that.
At this point, it's like kind of, it feels like more like a curse most of the time, but I'm just like, I mean, it's just like, I don't know, people who are like curators need it to fit with like whatever they're doing. And I'm just kind of like, I think the only question you need to be asking is like, do I like this or do I not like it? If you don't like it, that's fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
So what's your live experience been with the band so far? Have you guys played shows? Have you guys done tours? What's it been?
Yeah, we played a lot of shows around Nashville. We've gotten on the road a little bit to play other cities like around this area. Nashville is like kind of is good for this because it's like I think that there are like I want to say like 8 different major metropolitan areas that like are within a 3-hour drive of Nashville. But we haven't actually done like any touring in earnest. I was kind of hoping that we were going to get to that point over the course of this past year, but then COVID happened. So the last show we ever played was in Charlotte. I shouldn't say ever. We're going to play no more shows, but like the last live show we played was in Charlotte, North Carolina, and then like a few weeks later, like the whole world shut down, and that was that.
Yeah.
So we're kind of the you know the what's the word, like the plants are coming through the cracks in the concrete now, I think. So people are starting to do things again. So we'll be back out there at some point soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's exciting. I mean, now that 2021 is coming, it's opening up.
I'm all vaxxed up. There's no reason why not anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have a proudest moment so far of your time at the Great Palumbo and what you guys have accomplished?
Um, I'm trying to think. I'd be curious to hear my bandmates have to say about this. I should qualify. I'm only like 1/3 of this project. My bandmates Will and Harrison are obviously not on this Zoom call with me, but I'd be curious what their answers are to this. I mean, I think for me, I'm really trying to just keep the blinders on and like just focus purely on the art because I mean, I'm someone that's like pretty like type A and logical and like have this need to achieve. So I'm always like trying to like, like I'm always like trying to like I've got my measuring sticks and I'm always trying to like measure up to this like imaginary thing that I want to be able to do. And I'm really just now trying to like be more focused on like the art because that's what it all comes back to. And that's like all that I think if there's too many other reasons why you're doing it, it starts to become a problem. And so for me, I think certainly I'm still like mostly just focused on trying to create things I'm excited about. So I think most of my proudest moments have just been like, um, I think they've been sort of in the studio, like just sort of hearing something that I had in my head for like a long time, like come to life and just like, and seeing it evolve and like all the inputs that like the people that work with us have on it. Like, I mean, we have been really blessed to have some like great players that have lent their talents to this project and like hearing these things come together. I'm just like, this is like better than I possibly could have imagined. This is like I could not have gotten it here on my own. And yet like, it's got my name on it. And that's like, makes me so proud to hear like these songs like come to life in these cool ways.
Yeah, it's an amazing feeling, I'm sure. Um, what are you excited for that's coming up and what are you working on now?
Um, well, we've spent most of COVID in the studio, um, masked up, but we recorded at the beginning of COVID. We recorded. It wasn't the beginning. It was like after like the like super intense quarantine at the beginning ended, and people were kind of starting to like poke their heads out. Like we were gonna do this project like earlier in the year, but then like things happened. So we went back around and we went back into the studio like this past summer to do a few covers. We've never done covers before. And those are being released now. So we just released our version of California Dreaming. There are 2 more that are about to come out that are they will be sort of like a little mini EP. So those are I'm pretty focused on like just releasing those right now. I've got some stuff lined up for some of them. So and I feel like I shouldn't be as excited about them as I am because I'm like I didn't write them, but they do sound like really good. I'm like really stoked about them. So those are done and have been done for a little while, and we're kind of just in the middle of releasing those. But also in parallel with that, we are finishing up 5 more originals that will round out a full album. So the full album, I think, will probably come out like at the end of 2021 or maybe the beginning of 2022 at the latest. So I'm in mixes for all those songs now, and that is that's kind of where my head's at right now. Those will all be coming out over the course of the ensuing months.
That's exciting, man. Yeah, I'm excited to hear all these new sounds you have coming on. Sounds like you have a great thing planned out.
Yeah,
So
that's
out of
cool.
all these experiences you've talked about and all these things you've learned, what's a specific lesson you've learned that you'd like to pass on to other artists as well? What's a lesson you give to like maybe new artists that are starting out?
Number one, like it does need to start and end with like the art that you're making. Like, I mean, if you like, we all have like other things out there that we want to accomplish, and you can't help but compare yourself to the things around you. But I think that like, if you're gonna make something compelling, you need to start with like having a vision for what that is, and everything else ultimately needs to be secondary. I mean, it's important also, but like if you don't have that as a foundation, then like it's probably going to feel not very good to go through these motions. So that's I think probably the biggest thing. But and then once you have your vision, I mean, you really need to like embody that vision for the people around you, because there's a lot going on, and a lot of people that are probably more talented than you or me, or any, like it's just like you can never. I feel like Nashville's a place where it's like you can't ever think you're going to be like the best person within this scene. So like I think that like all you really have is like your artistic vision. So it's just like you need to put in the work to figure out what that is, figure out what that artistic identity is, and then you need to you need to live that out and embody it, and you know set that tone for the people around you, because I think that like there's a lot that people have to give here if they have like a good north star that they're driving towards. um, so if you can set that north star for people, you can be it's pretty amazing what people here can help you do.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that North Star concept, actually. That's great. Well, yeah, thanks for your time, man. I appreciate having you on and talking to you and learning about your story and your experiences. And I've learned a lot about you. And I think you have a great year coming up. I'm excited to hear all your new songs and the album eventually. And, I'm excited to see where you go.
Yeah, thanks, dog. Appreciate you having me.